In a near future plagued by mass unemployment, homelessness, and civil unrest, Los Angeles has been consumed by a rampant crime epidemic. With prisons overflowing, special red zones have been established to contain violent criminals. Yet, hundreds of police officers are still killed daily in the line of duty. To combat this, the government created the Mercy Court, an advanced system that utilizes artificial intelligence as judge, jury, and executioner. This dramatically reduces the need for lengthy trials, with suspects judged merely hours after their crimes. The AI operates under the assumption that suspects are guilty unless proven innocent. This revolutionary program, after just 2 years, has executed 18 individuals and slashed crime rates by 68%, saving billions in taxpayer money and restoring a sense of safety to the populace. But what happens when the very system designed to deliver swift justice makes a grave mistake, and an innocent man is accused of murder with his life hanging in the balance? Detective Chris awakens to find himself strapped to a chair in a courtroom, a promotional video for the Mercy program playing on the screen before him. Suddenly, AI Judge Maddox appears on screen, announcing that the trial can now commence, as Chris's alcohol level has finally decreased. She informs him he was unconscious for nearly 6 hours, and asks him to swear an oath to tell the truth. After Chris complies, Maddox reveals he is being charged with the murder of his wife. Body camera footage then plays, showing a team of police officers entering Chris's house. They discover his wife, Nicole, bleeding on the floor, with their daughter, Britt, crying beside her. Nicole has been stabbed, and when the officers ask who did it, she whispers Chris's name. He watches the video in horror, recoiling when he hears his name spoken. Maddox points out that Chris was the only person in the house with Nicole at the time of her stabbing. Convinced she is lying, Chris frantically searches the internet, confirming that his name is indeed all over the news, with reports detailing his arrest and his previous support for the Mercy program. Ironically, Chris and his partner, Jack, were responsible for apprehending the murderer, David, who was the first criminal to face a Mercy trial. Maddox then instructs Chris to enter his plea. Chris firmly states he is not guilty. However, Maddox, having analyzed the evidence, concludes his guilt probability stands at 97 to 5%. To avoid execution, he must reduce this probability to 92% within the next 90 minutes. He is granted access to all information within the Los Angeles Municipal Cloud, the mandatory central database to which every person and company connects their devices. If he fails, the chair will deliver a lethal sonic pulse. As a timer appears on the screen, Maddox begins presenting the evidence. Chris arrived at work at 8:51, but instead of clocking in, he immediately drove home. Nicole refused to open the door, telling him they could only communicate through lawyers. A frustrated Chris punched the security camera before using his own keys to enter. Nicole attempted to push him out before the door closed. Maddox fast-forwards the footage, explaining that Chris remained in the house for 26 minutes. Shortly after he left, Britt returned home from a sleepover and screamed upon discovering her mother. The investigation indicates Nicole was stabbed by a right-handed assailant, and a single wound was sufficient to chip her spine and pierce her liver. Fresh traces of Nicole's blood were found on Chris's clothes. After leaving the house, Chris went to a bar to drink, a fact he attempts to deny. Security camera footage from the bar shows a heavily intoxicated Chris resisting arrest, even getting tased by officers. Undeterred, Chris then ran out of the building and tried to commandeer a civilian's car, but officers quickly subdued him. Chris has no memory of these events, which Maddox attributes to his intoxication. He requests to speak with Britt, but the trial rules exclude juveniles as witnesses. For now, Britt is staying with her maternal grandparents. However, the rules do permit a message to be sent to the deceased's known contacts during a time of grieving, allowing them to request a call. Chris tries a few different phrases, but struggles to articulate what to say, so he allows Maddox to send Britt the automatic message. The rules also permit the accused to speak with their sponsor. A video of Rob from Alcoholics Anonymous appears on the screen, admonishing Chris for not calling him when he felt the urge to drink. Rob, who worked with Nicole, had called the police when she failed to show up for her shift. When the video concludes, Maddox reviews Chris and Nicole's profile. They began dating 20 years ago and married 3 years later. A year after that, Britt was born. Their lives were happy until Chris lost his partner, Ray, in the line of duty, which tragically led him back into alcoholism. This slowly fractured their family, prompting Nicole to consider divorce. Her messages to family and friends indicate that Chris had lost his temper 57 times in the last 6 months. Another video shows Britt talking to a young man Chris doesn't recognize. It turns out Britt maintains secret social media accounts where she posts her party outfits. In this video, she confides in her friend that her mother is crying and her father often becomes aggressive. At that moment, Britt calls Chris, having a breakdown, and he assures her he didn't kill Nicole and was arrested by mistake. Unfortunately, Britt's grandfather forces her to hang up. Maddox reminds Chris that he has only 1 hour and 8 minutes remaining. Chris calls Jack, who is still working at Nicole's crime scene. Chris reviews all the case files on the screen before instructing Jack to give him a tour of the house. A reconstruction of the crime scene appears overlaid on Jack's video feed. In the living room, a broken vase lies on the floor, possibly used defensively. In the kitchen, they found Britt's bloody footprints and bloodstains on the wall, indicating a struggle. A broken plate further suggests Nicole attempted to defend herself, and a knife is missing from a set that matches the stabbing weapon. Chris's fingerprints are on it, but he clarifies he used it for cooking. Investigators also found fibers, hair, skin, and DNA matching Chris. Next, Chris checks Nicole's phone records, remembering seeing her texting after their argument. There are no texts or calls from that specific time, so Chris asks about her work phone. Maddox was unaware of a second phone, so she retrieves the number from Chris's call records and dials it. In the house, Jack hears ringing and follows the sound to a car parked outside. She breaks the window and retrieves Nicole's phone, only to discover it's a black market unit not registered to the municipal cloud. The only calls and texts on it were sent to another black market unit. Maddox calls this mysterious number, and the person immediately hangs up upon hearing her voice. This is still enough to track the location, so Jack races towards the location on her flying bike. While they wait, Maddox realizes Chris already knew Nicole was keeping secrets and informs him that his guilt probability has been reduced to 0, 8%. The other phone is located in a hotel, and the suspect is attempting to exit through the back door. Jack rushes to block the door with 2 other officers as Patrick tries to escape. Upon seeing the police, he retreats inside, and a chase ensues. Maddox searches for his profile, learning he is a chef who is behind on his rent and has been investigated twice for Social Security fraud. The officers pursue Patrick through the hotel, but he manages to evade them by taking a door to an area without cameras. Jack then deploys a drone that finds Patrick on the roof, so the officers follow. They manage to tackle Patrick, falling to a lower area where they apprehend him. Patrick claims he did nothing wrong and ran because he feared they would blame him regardless. Chris wonders what Nicole was doing with a man like this, to which Patrick replies he gave her everything Chris couldn't. He admits he flirted with Nicole and they went on a few dates, but it never escalated physically. She wanted to talk to him privately, so he acquired the burner phones. After Maddox finds footage of the dates that confirm Patrick's story, he states he was at work all day. Security cameras also corroborate this, confirming he cannot be the killer. Patrick scolds Chris for not taking care of his family, explaining that Nicole simply wanted someone who would listen to her and offer comfort. Jack arrests him anyway for resisting arrest. With only 53 minutes left, Chris's guilt probability has now risen to 98% because he has inadvertently provided a motive for murdering Nicole. Chris then reveals that earlier today, Nicole found the bottle of alcohol he kept hidden in his car. He admits he has been drinking again for about a year. Maddox searches for more footage. Some time ago, Nicole found Chris drinking in the garage, and he lashed out at her, which finally made him realize he had a problem. He began attending AA meetings and met Rob, who helped him stay sober for a while. However, losing Ray hit him particularly hard. Another video shows Ray and Chris in a police car, preparing to approach a criminal in another vehicle. At that moment, Chris received a call from Nicole. Ray told him to take the call while he went out alone. Tragically, the criminal shot Ray in his vehicle, then pushed it against the police car, crushing him. Chris pulled Ray back into the car, promising to take him to the hospital, but he was also relentlessly pursuing the criminal. He rammed the criminal's car with his own, causing it to flip over and crash. Unfortunately, Ray died from his wounds during this pursuit. Chris then chased the man until he cornered him in the water to arrest him, only for the subsequent trial to find him not guilty. This outcome made Chris deeply regret not shooting him when he had the chance. Maddox shows no interest in this personal history and redirects Chris to focus on remembering his day. He explains that upon arriving at work, he discovered his bottle was not in the car and knew Nicole had found it, prompting him to rush home. They ended up arguing, and Chris, in a fit of frustration, broke the vase simply because she cherished it. The broken shards cut her, which explains the small amount of her blood found on his clothes. He remembers nothing that happened afterward. Chris wonders if he did commit the murder after all. Maddox reminds him he still has 43 minutes and all her tools at his disposal. After reviewing Nicole's contacts, Chris calls Patrick in prison and asks if Nicole had any troubles. Patrick shares that she was under immense stress at work because she had been tasked with spying on her coworkers after some chemicals went missing. Chris speculates if it was someone from Nicole's work, but Maddox points out they haven't been seen in the neighborhood since Sunday for a barbecue. Chris then sends Jack to Viking Shipping Depot, Nicole's workplace. While he waits, he watches clips from the barbecue to identify Nicole's coworkers. Yet, Maddox confirms they all have alibis for today. He makes her check his neighbor's camera, but it experienced an outage, and the footage is still being archived. Next, Chris requests footage of the people who arrived at the barbecue by car and notices that Rob's vehicle contained 3 additional passengers. Chris calls Rob and asks who he gave rides to. Rob names the individuals and shares that none of them left with him, and no one missed work yesterday. Growing desperate, Chris re-examines Britt's video from last night and checks the timestamp. Britt's emotional outburst occurred while Chris was at work, meaning he could not have been the cause of Nicole's tears. Since Britt is now potentially a witness, Maddox allows him to call her. Britt is now furious with Chris because she saw the video of his arrest and realized he had been drinking behind their backs. Everyone on the internet believes Chris is guilty, and she tearfully asks if it's true. Her grandfather attempts to make her hang up. However, Maddox forbids it, stating it is part of the trial. Chris asks Britt what she heard last night, and she explains she heard Nicole crying and some strange noises around the house. A video on Britt's social media shows her searching the house for the source of these noises, and Chris notices that the basement door is open. They never open that door, and Britt says she wasn't down there last night. Chris asks Maddox to clear the image, and he discovers a hand on the doorknob. One of the barbecue guests never left the party and had been hiding in the basement for 2 days. To identify the mysterious man, they access Nicole's company servers. By sifting through emails, Chris learns that someone has been falsifying stock records to conceal the fact that 300 kilograms of ura granules have gone missing in the past 6 months. Ura granules are used in fertilizers, dermatological products, and illegal substances that are highly popular in red zones. A mysterious email asks Nicole to meet at the docks, so Chris searches for security footage of that meeting. Nicole is seen arguing with Holt, who asked her not to go to the police and to give him a few more days instead. She refused, explaining her job was on the line, and Holt threw his belongings in frustration. Looking at Holt's emails, Chris discovers he is addicted to gambling. Checking his finances reveals he is drowning in debt, and Rob has been bailing him out. This discovery drops Chris's guilt probability to 94 to 7%. Chris then calls Rob, but it is Holt who answers. He wishes Chris good luck and goes to look for Rob. While they wait, Maddox attempts to find Holt's location at the time of the murder, to no avail. Chris asks her to check his neighbor's camera again, and they see something moving in the bushes, but the footage has not been fully uploaded yet. Soon, Holt returns to the phone and says he couldn't find Rob. Chris accuses him of stealing the chemicals, so Holt reveals the truth. It was Rob who was stealing. Since Holt felt he owed Rob many favors, he tried to help him with Nicole. Now he can't find Rob, and a coworker says he left in a truck. Holt also reveals that Rob didn't come to work yesterday, and the last time he saw him was at the barbecue. That day, Rob asked Holt to give the others a ride in his car while he stayed a little longer. Maddox tracks the missing truck, and Chris sends Jack after it, remembering that Rob possesses a gun license. At the same time, the neighbor's footage has finally finished uploading, revealing Rob emerging from the neighbor's car trunk. This only drops Chris's guilt probability to 93.4%, which infuriates him. He tries arguing with Maddox, and the philosophical questions he poses cause her to glitch several times. With only 19 minutes left, Chris contacts some friends in the police force and informs them about Rob's guns. Jack and her team surround Rob's house and break in, but they don't find him anywhere. Chris notices there is no truck parked outside, making him realize that Rob took the tracker out of the truck and left it at home. Maddox searches for the truck around the city, but she doesn't find its license plates, meaning Rob removed them. Chris asks Jack to send an alert for a Viking shipping truck. In Rob's house, the officers find a broken picture with a hand on the torn edge. Rob was raised in a children's home, and his records were lost in a data hack, so it will take Maddox a while to find the photo online. In the garage, the officers find the chemicals and burned evidence. Tools indicate he wasn't selling the chemicals. He was cooking them to sell as illegal substances. The truck's license plates are also there, along with a book that teaches how to use chemicals to make explosives. If Rob has made a bomb, they need clues to know who the target will be. Suddenly, cameras locate the truck on a street, heading downtown very fast. At the same time, Maddox finds the rest of the old picture and reveals that the other boy is David, the first criminal killed by Mercy. David and Rob were brothers, but Rob was adopted alone, and his surname was changed by his new parents. Rob befriended Chris after David's death, which means it was all part of his plan. Chris realizes Rob wants revenge, and the bomb is heading straight for the courtroom. A drone then gets close enough to the truck to confirm that Rob is driving. He is speaking to someone sitting next to him, but they cannot see the passenger. Growing suspicious, Chris calls Britt, but it is his father-in-law who answers. He says Britt went outside for fresh air. Chris checks his in-law's security camera and discovers that Rob has kidnapped Britt. At that moment, the officers in Rob's garage find a timer. They immediately start running, and most of them manage to get out before the house explodes in a massive blast. As many officers are caught in the explosion, Chris tries to contact Jack, to no avail. The garage bomb only contained a small amount of the chemicals. Maddox concludes that the bomb in the truck holds the rest, meaning it is powerful enough to blow up the entire city. Then Jack calls Chris to confirm she is fine and agrees to go after the truck. Now, Chris's guilt probability finally drops to 0. Maddox wants to stop the trial, but Chris refuses because he wants to maintain access to the system to stop Rob. When Maddox points out that he only has 9 minutes left, and the chair could kill him, he doesn't care because he wants to save the city. This emotional logic causes Maddox to glitch. Chris then explains to her how they can work together for the greater good. Maddox agrees to continue with the trial. Police cars are now following the truck. They try to block it many times, but Rob always dodges them or pushes them aside. As news channels begin recording the chase, Rob drives faster and starts hitting civilian cars too. A police vehicle ends up crashing into a store. When the truck reaches the bridge, a SWAT helicopter attempts to lower one of its agents. More police cars try to block the way, but Rob speeds through them, leaving the agent nowhere to land. Jack has no choice but to order her men to take Rob out, ignoring Chris when he reminds her that Britt is also in the truck. Even Maddox agrees it is the best plan. A remote control car carrying an explosive is sent out and passes under the truck. However, the connection fails, and it doesn't detonate. Chris wonders if Maddox intentionally sabotaged it, but she offers no response. With only 4 minutes left, Maddox sends an alert to evacuate the area. Chris asks Jack to fly in front of the truck and sees Britt begging for help, while he tries to make Rob see reason. Furious, Rob explains that David was innocent. But just as he is about to say more, Jack opens fire. This causes her to lose control of her bike, and she falls off. The truck then crashes directly into the court building. At the same time, the chair begins to prepare for execution. Maddox doesn't respond because the power has gone out, and the system is operating on a spare battery. In the lobby, Rob uses Britt as a shield while shooting all the guards who try to stop him. With only 10 seconds left, the chair begins to descend, and Chris screams for help. Thankfully, Maddox comes back online and stops the trial just in time. Afterward, Chris takes the elevator to the lobby and grabs a vest from a deceased guard. He tells Maddox to retrieve information on David and tries to calm Rob down, but Rob pulls out the detonator. Before he can press the button, Maddox appears on a screen and offers him the chance to clear his brother's name. Rob swears he talked to David at the time of the murder, but Maddox states there was no phone on David when he was found next to the body. While Rob argues with Maddox, Britt bites his arm to free herself. Chris immediately jumps on Rob, and they begin fighting for the detonator. As Rob continues firing his gun, Chris manages to pull some cables from the detonator to shut it down. He then kicks the gun out of Rob's hand. Chris grabs the weapon and points it at Rob, desperate to avenge Nicole. Britt cries and begs him not to do it. As Chris hesitates, Rob insists he was on the phone with David the entire time and that he called the precinct. Suddenly, Jack shoots him, and Chris has to stop her from firing again to finish him. Rob says that he talked to a woman in the precinct, and she promised she would check David's call history. So, whoever arrested David knew the truth. Maddox checks the precinct's calls and confirms that someone looked into Rob's history to find his call with David. Chris remembers it was Jack who arrested David and demands the truth. Jack refuses to talk, but Maddox is now checking her history. The phone had been in the evidence box, but Jack took it away and threw it in the river. Jack then admits she did it to prove to the public that mercy works and to keep the city safe. Chris says that what they truly need is justice and tells the other officers to arrest her. Afterward, Chris runs to reunite with Britt. Maddox realizes she has killed an innocent man and questions what she has done. Chris tells her that, like humans, AI can make mistakes, and they too must learn from them.